Welcome to Weekend Hustlers, The Learner, the deep dive that takes your information and extracts the insights you need fast.
You're here because you want to get informed without the overwhelm.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we do. Pavlov and Nikita here.
Ready to unpack the sources you've sent our way.
Today we're diving into the India Insights Report by IndiaQuotient 2025.
You've shared this comprehensive look at the Indian landscape.
Our mission is to pull out the most fascinating and relevant nuggets for you. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding the key trends and unique aspects of the Indian market right now.
Yeah, this report is packed.
Oh, it is?
Covering everything from digital habits to education, weddings, rural dynamics, agriculture, consumer brands, manufacturing, and even the kids market.
It's a broad spectrum, but that's where the deep dive comes in. We'll navigate through these sections highlighting what's most surprising and insightful, keeping your interest in mind. You want those aha moments, not just a data dump. We'll be focusing on the unique characteristics and rapid changes happening in India as seen through the lens of these diverse sectors.
To give you a roadmap, we'll start with digital dopamine.
Okay.
To understand India's online habits and what's driving them.
All right.
Then we'll move into education, a topic with deep historical roots and a massive modern-day presence. Weddings in India are a cultural and economic phenomenon.
Huge.
So we'll explore some of the fascinating details there. We'll also look at the evolving landscape of rural India and the crucial sector of agriculture. Finally, we'll touch upon the dynamics of consumer brands, the challenges of making real things in the ever-changing world of kids in India.
Okay.
We'll aim for a balanced overview, hitting the key takeaways from each.
So let's jump right into digital dopamine. The report kicks off by highlighting India's massive and diverse content space. 121 major languages, thousands more hundreds of TV channels, and the largest number of YouTube creators. You provided this, and it immediately signals a huge appetite for digital content.
What's fascinating here is that the report points out that Bharat, India, outside the major metros, is driving a lot of this digital activity.
Oh, right.
For example, rural areas account for a significant chunk of users across OTT, which stands for over-the-top, referring to streaming services, as well as communication, social media, online gaming, e-commerce, digital payments, and online learning. This might challenge some assumptions you have about where digital consumption is concentrated.
It definitely does.
The crucial insight here is that digital engagement isn't just an urban phenomenon in India, it's deeply embedded in rural life as well.
And despite this high engagement, full internet access isn't universal, and 5G penetration is still growing.
Right.
Yet Indians consume significantly more data per month than the global average, like 1.5 times more.
Wow.
The report suggests a reason for this. Smaller homes, fewer playgrounds, busy roads leading to a digital utopia as a form of recreation and entertainment.
I see.
It's like the digital space has become the primary infrastructure for leisure and connection for many, especially outside the major cities.
That's a really insightful way to look at it. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the lack of physical recreational spaces, combined with affordable smartphones data creates a powerful engine for digital consumption. And the fact that 5G penetration is still growing suggests this trend will likely intensify.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The shift from free to paid digital content is also noteworthy. Models like pay-per-view and variable coin-based pricing are gaining traction, even in areas like dating, mental health, gaming, and spirituality. The success story of Cuckoo FM going from free to millions of paid subscribers. Using UPI AutoPay as a game changer for subscriptions is a key insight here. UPI, or Unified Payments Interface, is a key digital payment system in India. It sounds like the Indian consumer is becoming more willing to pay for digital value, and UPI is making it seamless.
Absolutely. The introduction of UPI AutoPay seems to have lowered the barrier for subscriptions in a country where traditional credit card penetration is relatively low. What's fascinating here is the willingness to pay, even for traditionally free content, indicating a maturing digital market and a growing trust in digital payment methods.
Finally, the report categorizes social content startups into interactive and broadcast platforms, each with different monetization models. It also lays out North Star metrics like virality, engagement, retention, and monetization to watch in this space. And the concept of whales, a small percentage of users who drive the majority of revenue, is introduced. The rise of Babas, spiritual leaders on social media, and the significant market for astrology further illustrate the unique digital landscape. It's not just about entertainment, it's also about connection-seeking guidance and even commerce in unexpected sectors.
This raises an important question. How do these unique digital behaviors in India, the dominance of Bharat, the shift to paid content via UPI, and the popularity of spiritual and astrological content differentiate the Indian digital market from more Western-centric models. It seems like a compelling blend of rapid technological adoption with deep-rooted cultural nuances. The key takeaway here is that understanding these nuances is crucial for anyone looking to engage with the Indian digital consumer.
Okay. Moving to education, the report starts with a fascinating historical note. The ancient Nalanda University predating Oxford by centuries, holding millions of books and attracting students globally. This sets the stage for India's long-standing engagement with learning.
What's significant about starting with Nalanda is that it provides a historical context to India's emphasis on education. It wasn't a fleeting trend, but something deeply ingrained in the culture for centuries. This historical weight continues to influence parental and societal priorities around learning today.
Today, India has a massive young population, nearly 500 million under 19. Parents are spending a significant portion of their income on education, recognizing the importance of the education upgrade for social status and career prospects. However, literacy rates still lag behind countries like the US and China, highlighting the scale of the opportunity.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer size of the young population, combined with the intense parental emphasis on education as a pathway to a better future, creates an enormous market. However, the literacy gap also signals the disparities that still exist, and the significant potential for growth and improvement in educational access and quality.
The report details the aspirations driving different socioeconomic groups, from the middle class seeking private schools to the elite prioritizing international education leading to a surge in study abroad. The phenomenon of tiger moms and the resulting overrepresentation of Indian CEOs globally are also mentioned as outcomes of this intense focus on education. It sounds like education is seen as a near universal obsession and a crucial lever for social mobility.
That's a key takeaway. The education upgrade isn't just about acquiring knowledge, it's deeply intertwined with social standing and future opportunities. The fact that Indian CEOs are disproportionately represented globally speaks to the intensely competitive educational environment and the unwavering focus on academic achievement often instilled from a very young age.
Interestingly, postgraduate degrees often hold social prestige, even if not directly linked to immediate career advancement, particularly in the marriage market. However, the number of quality higher education seats remains limited compared to the number of students fueling intense competition for top institutions. So it's not just about getting a degree, but which degree for which institution holds significant social capital.
This raises an important question about the supply and demand dynamics in Indian higher education. The limited number of high-quality seats creates this intense competition and, as we'll see, fuels a whole parallel industry of coaching and test preparation.
This competition has created a massive coaching market, with hubs like Kota generating huge revenues and students dedicating years to exam preparation. The economics of higher education are also discussed, with private institutions growing rapidly and the cost of education rising significantly, leading some families to opt for smaller families. It's a huge financial commitment for families, often seen as a necessary investment.
What's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the coaching industry. Kota alone, generating $800 million annually, highlights the immense pressure students and families face to secure those coveted higher education seats. And the rising cost of education having a direct impact on family size underscores the significant financial burden it represents for many households.
Finally, the report touches on the role of EdTech, which seems to be evolving toward offline models with digital front ends. Despite significant investment, truly large outcomes in EdTech are still awaited, and the sector has seen its share of challenges. Opportunities in employability, skilled labor, and leveraging AI for personalized learning are highlighted for the future. It feels like EdTech is still navigating its place and impact within the complex Indian educational landscape.
That's a crucial point. While EdTech saw a significant boom, the report suggests a recalibration towards more hybrid models that blend online and offline learning. The real opportunity might lie in effectively addressing the employability gap and providing relevant skills-based training alongside leveraging technologies like AI to personalize learning experiences at scale.
Okay, moving on to weddings in India. The report reveals that India accounts for a staggering 1 in 4 weddings globally, creating millions of jobs. The industry is huge, although many transactions are still cash-based, suggesting the actual size could be even larger than estimated.
What's incredible here is the sheer volume. 1 in 4 weddings globally happening in India underscores the immense cultural significance and the substantial economic impact of this sector. The fact that many transactions are still in cash also hints at the potential for formalization and further growth within this massive industry.
Despite the diversity of Indian cultures, the love for elaborate multi-day wedding ceremonies is a unifying factor. While intercaste marriages are becoming more accepted, many traditional rituals continue to be practiced. It seems like tradition and modernity are coexisting and shaping the Indian wedding experience.
Exactly. While social norms are gradually evolving, the core cultural practices and the deep-seated desire for elaborate and multi-day celebrations remain strong unifying factors across the incredibly diverse Indian landscape.
Social media, particularly Instagram, is influencing wedding trends, with global looks gaining popularity in makeup, couture, ivory, replacing red in jewelry. Spending is shifting from traditional recipients to brands, destinations, and experiences that create social buzz. Destination weddings, both within India and abroad, costing billions of dollars out of the country, are a significant trend. It's all about creating that picture-perfect, shareable moment for the digital age.
This clearly highlights the significant influence of globalization and social media on even deeply traditional events like weddings. The noticeable shift in spending towards branded products, exotic destinations, and unique experiences reflects changing aspirations and the desire for social validation and creating memorable content.
The report provides a breakdown of the economics of a simple urban wedding, highlighting major expenses like catering, venue, gifts, and decoration. It's noted that parents often save more for their children's weddings than for their education, indicating the profound cultural priority placed on these events. That's a pretty significant data point about societal values and spending habits.
It really is. The fact that wedding expenses often outweigh savings for education underscores the immense cultural importance placed on weddings and the significant social obligations associated with them within Indian society.
Interestingly, an MBA degree is humorously suggested as a way to play the wedding market, given its perceived value in matchmaking. The shift towards later marriages among YOLO kids in their 30s is also mentioned, potentially impacting related industries like pet care and IVF. It sounds like even marriage trends are being influenced by broader societal shifts and evolving individual priorities.
That's a fascinating connection the report makes. It highlights how delayed marriages might lead to increased spending in other sectors as young individuals prioritize personal experiences, career building, and perhaps even pet ownership before settling down.
The increasing acceptance of long dating periods and the rising aspirations of brides are shaping the wedding apparel and jewelry markets, with large branded stores and online platforms gaining traction. Despite the success of some startups in the wedding space, a direct scalable play has been challenging, while indirect plays have fared better. The report concludes by suggesting a potential correction in marriage market valuations. It seems like a complex and tradition-bound market for entrepreneurs to navigate successfully.
The wedding market, while undeniably huge, is also deeply fragmented, relationship-driven, and influenced by strong cultural norms. The report's suggestion of a potential valuation correction indicates that while there's been startup activity, sustainable and truly scalable models that can consistently capture a large share of this market are still evolving.
Let's move to rural India. The section paints a picture of rapid change. A significant majority of India still lives in rural areas with a young population. Importantly, there's a growing GDP per rural household, leading to substantial disposable income, and discretionary spending significantly challenging the traditional image of widespread rural poverty.
This is a really important point that often gets overlooked in broader discussions about India. The narrative around rural India is evolving, with increasing economic prosperity in many regions leading to a noticeable shift in consumer behavior and spending patterns.
While progress has been made in areas like electricity coverage and internet penetration, there's still a gap compared to urban areas, presenting significant opportunities for startups and businesses. The report notes that rural India today is in some ways where urban India was in the 2010s, with similar needs and aspirations emerging, so it's like history might be rhyming in terms of developmental stages and emerging consumer demands.
That's a great analogy. The existing lag in infrastructure and digital access, compared to urban centers, presents a substantial market opportunity for businesses that can effectively cater to the specific and evolving needs of the rural population.
It's crucial to understand that rural India is not just agriculture anymore. A significant portion of the rural GDP now comes from non-farm jobs, and migration to cities is actually slowing down. However, there's a pressing need to create many more non-farm employment opportunities as the younger generation moves away from traditional agriculture, and vocational training in rural areas requires a significant boost. This diversification of the rural economy is key to its continued progress.
Absolutely. The observed decline in the traditional reliance on agriculture and the slowing rate of migration to urban areas underscore the growing importance of alternative employment opportunities within rural regions. This highlights the critical need for investments in skill development and vocational training programs tailored to the rural context.
Interestingly, women are taking on a larger and more significant role in agriculture. As men increasingly seek employment in other sectors, we're also seeing a rise in farm automation.
Interesting.
The report also highlights a somewhat unique trend: the peripheries of growing cities often actively seek to retain their rural classification to continue benefiting from various government schemes and subsidies. These are interesting shifts in rural demographics, economic activity, and policy considerations.
These trends underscore the evolving dynamics within rural communities, the increasing economic empowerment of women in agriculture, and the strategic leveraging of rural classifications for continued access to governmental support and benefits.
Rural India is also getting richer at a faster pace in recent years, with wealth accumulation driven by factors like land sales due to urbanization, the impact of cooperative and government schemes, and the cultivation of higher value exotic crops. This growing affluence is creating a significant demand for white goods and fast-moving consumer goods, or FMCG, with local brands often demonstrating a strong competitive edge over national players in these markets. It sounds like a distinct and increasingly powerful consumer market is emerging in rural India.
The faster pace of wealth accumulation in rural areas, propelled by these specific economic drivers, is indeed creating a distinct and increasingly affluent consumer base with its own set of preferences, where local brands often enjoy a significant advantage in terms of market understanding and penetration compared to larger national brands.
Digital penetration is remarkably high in rural areas, primarily driven by widespread smartphone adoption, making it a substantial market for a wide range of online services. However, access to quality healthcare remains a significant challenge. Despite the implementation of various insurance schemes, faith religious events and the influence of local gurus also represent a significant and often overlooked microeconomy within rural India. The report concludes by highlighting that while some startups and larger corporations are beginning to make inroads in rural India, there's still a vast and largely untapped potential to replicate the kind of impact seen in urban areas, particularly by developing solutions specifically tailored to the unique needs and characteristics of rural communities. It definitely feels like rural India represents an enormous untapped frontier for many businesses.
Despite the widespread digital connectivity, the persistent challenges in healthcare access underscore specific and critical needs that require targeted solutions. Additionally, the significant economic activity centered around faith and local customs emphasizes the importance of deeply understanding the cultural context when developing products and services for rural India.
Let's dive into agriculture in India. The section emphasizes its fundamental and enduring role in the Indian economy and society, from ancient civilizations to the present day. Despite substantial government investment and various policies implemented since independence that successfully transformed the nation from food scarcity to surplus, farmers continue to face what the report aptly describes as a bumpy ride. While overall agricultural production has indeed increased significantly, the incomes of farmers haven't kept pace with this growth, and the overall share of agriculture in India's GDP has remained relatively stable over time. It's a sector deeply rooted in history, but grappling with persistent and complex challenges.
That's a crucial paradox at the heart of Indian agriculture. Despite the undeniable increase in food production, the fact that the incomes of the very people who produce this food have not grown proportionally highlights deep-seated systemic issues within the agricultural value chain.
The report poignantly highlights the irony of the urban middle class frequently protesting against rising food prices while often overlooking the significant struggles faced by farmers who contend with low incomes and highly fragmented land holdings. Farmers operate within a complex and often inefficient value chain that involves numerous intermediaries, which ultimately leads to squeezed profit margins for those at the very beginning of the process. It really feels like there's a significant disconnect in perspective between urban consumers and the rural producers who feed them.
This truly underscores the inherent complexities of balancing the interests of urban consumers with the fundamental economic well-being of the agricultural community. The existence of a multi-layered value chain with numerous intermediaries significantly erodes the profitability for the farmers who bear the initial risks and labor.
Government policies, while generally well-intentioned and aiming to support both farmers and consumers, often encounter the difficult challenge of navigating the competing interests of politically influential middlemen and price-sensitive consumers.
Right.
The report also discusses the vicious cycle where poverty limits farmers' ability to invest in mechanization, which in turn hinders their productivity and yields. It seems like policymakers face a very difficult tightrope walk in this sector.
Absolutely. The report effectively points out the inherent difficulties in formulating and implementing effective policies that genuinely benefit farmers, without triggering adverse effects on other powerful stakeholders. Within the agricultural ecosystem, the interconnected issue of limited financial capacity preventing mechanization, which then perpetuates low yields, exemplifies the complex challenges involved.
Significant amounts of food are wasted due to inefficient logistics and inadequate post-harvest infrastructure, which further depresses farmer incomes. While a number of startups are attempting to address various issues within both the input and output sides of the agricultural value chain, the report suggests that many of these ventures are primarily focused on gross merchandise value, or GMV, rather than on implementing deeper, more impactful solutions that directly improve farmer profitability. Interestingly, despite India being a very large market for tractors, the overall levels of farm mechanization remain surprisingly low when compared to many other agricultural nations. It sounds like the solutions needed are perhaps more fundamental and less about just creating marketplaces.
The substantial levels of food wastage throughout the supply chain highlight critical inefficiencies that directly impact farmer earnings. The report's observation that many startups may be prioritizing transaction volume over fundamental improvements in farmer livelihoods raises a crucial question about the actual impact of these technological interventions.
Government financing initiatives often tend to focus on providing general financial support to farmers, rather than specifically targeting investments in farming inputs and infrastructure, which unfortunately leads to a continued reliance on private lenders, who often charge significantly higher interest rates. However, the report also notes that some individuals who own farmland in rapidly urbanizing areas are profiting considerably from the escalating land values. It appears that the intended financial support isn't always reaching or being utilized in the most effective ways for agricultural development.
The report suggests a potential disconnect between the government's financial aid mechanisms and the actual on-the-ground needs of farmers for investing in essential agricultural inputs and technological upgrades, which unfortunately perpetuates their dependence on informal and often exploitative credit sources.
The minimum support price, or MSP system, which is intended to provide a safety net for farmers, may have inadvertently led to a discouragement of crop diversification, as farmers tend to focus on crops that are covered under the MSP. As India's agricultural workforce continues to shrink due to ongoing urbanization, the adoption of technology and increased mechanization will inevitably need to play a much larger role in the sector's future. The report does showcase some promising examples of agri-tech platforms that are having a positive impact on both farmer yields and incomes. The future trajectory of agriculture in India will likely involve precision farming techniques, increased automation, and weather-based solutions, which will require a strong and consistent policy push that prioritizes farmer profitability, not just the creation of marketplaces. It definitely sounds like a significant technological and policy transformation is essential for the future of Indian agriculture.
The potential unintended consequences of the MSP system on crop diversity, coupled with the shrinking agricultural labor force due to urbanization, clearly underscores the urgent need for strategic technological interventions and supportive policy shifts that prioritize enhancing farmer profitability and encouraging the adoption of more sustainable and diversified agricultural practices.
Let's move to consumer brands in India. The section highlights that India's expanding middle class is increasingly aspiring to and trying to emulate the lifestyle of the top 2% of the population. This aspiration is significantly driving demand for upgrades across various aspects of life, including education, wardrobe, and overall lifestyle choices. Interestingly, the ongoing trend towards single-child families is creating what the report terms Rajabetas and Rani Bitias, essentially more pampered children, who often receive significant and extended financial support from their parents well into adulthood, which in turn has a notable influence on overall household spending patterns. These evolving demographic shifts are clearly having a substantial impact on consumer behavior and market dynamics.
This aspiration-driven consumption by the expanding middle class, fueled by a desire to emulate the lifestyles of the affluent, is a significant engine for growth in the Indian consumer market. The rise of single-child families and the phenomenon of these princelings highlight a fundamental shift in family dynamics and how disposable income is being allocated often with a strong focus on the child.
The strong desire for white-collar professional jobs means that salaries for entry-level positions in these sectors haven't seen dramatic increases. However, consumer spending is being significantly fueled by what the report playfully calls the bank of parent, as well as the increasing use of credit cards. This dynamic has contributed to a more homogenized consuming class, largely influenced by social media trends, which in turn makes it somewhat easier for brands to build national recognition. However, global brands still often tend to primarily focus their marketing efforts on just the very top tier of consumers. It sounds like social media is acting as a powerful equalizer in terms of consumer aspirations and creating a broader market for certain types of brands.
The widespread accessibility of global trends through social media platforms is indeed contributing to a more unified consumer base in terms of their aspirations and desires, the reliance on parental financial support, and the increasing adoption of credit for spending highlight a unique set of economic drivers shaping consumer demand in India.
These princelings, or pampered young consumers, tend to gravitate towards new aspirational brands that are perceived as being cool and of high quality. They often actively avoid older, more established legacy brands that they might perceive as being boring or cheap, especially if those brands frequently offer discounts. This creates significant opportunities for newer brands that can successfully strike a balance between being perceived as cool and aspirational, offering genuine quality, and maintaining reasonable pricing. The success story of Attenborough fans, which managed to disrupt a seemingly stagnant market for ceiling fans, effectively illustrates how a well-positioned product can capitalize on these evolving consumer preferences. It's all about identifying and capturing that aspirational sweet spot in the market.
This clear preference among younger consumers for new aspirational brands over more established ones signifies a noticeable shift in brand loyalty, largely driven by contemporary perceptions of coolness, innovation, and quality. Attenborough's impressive success serves as a compelling example of the potential for disruption, when a brand effectively understands and caters to these evolving consumer preferences and values.
The first generation of direct-to-consumer or D2C brands, which began to emerge in India around 15 years ago, initially focused heavily on online sales. However, many of these early players encountered significant challenges related to high customer acquisition costs or CACs, largely due to the dominance of a few major players in the online advertising space. This often led them to become increasingly reliant on large online marketplaces for sales. A crucial turning point for many D2C brands was the realization that expanding into offline channels through the establishment of exclusive brand outlets or EBOs was essential to achieve significant scale beyond a certain point. It seems like a truly omnichannel approach integrating both online and offline presence, becoming a necessity for sustained growth.
The experiences of the first wave of DTC brands clearly highlight the complexities of the Indian e-commerce landscape, particularly the significant costs associated with acquiring customers online. The strategic shift towards establishing a physical presence through exclusive brand outlets underscores the continued importance of offline channels for building brand recognition, trust, and achieving substantial scale in the Indian market.
The second generation of consumer brands is now increasingly leveraging the rapid growth of quick commerce or QCOM platforms such as Zepto to effectively cater to the modern consumer's growing demand for instant gratification. We're also seeing more brands successfully adopting a comprehensive omni-channel approach, seamlessly integrating their online and offline sales and marketing channels. It's all about speed, convenience, and providing a consistent brand experience across all touch points for today's Indian consumer.
The increasing prominence of quick commerce platforms reflects the evolving consumer expectation for immediate fulfillment. Brands that can effectively integrate these rapid delivery services with their broader online and offline strategies are likely to gain a significant competitive advantage in the current market.
Interestingly, traditional retail players like Zudia, which focus on offering good value and have a strong emphasis on in-house manufacturing capabilities, often outperform many of the heavily venture capital-funded, fashion-focused D2C brands. The key to their success seems to be their ability to consistently offer good value without heavily relying on frequent discounts, which in turn makes customers feel like they're getting a great deal. Without the brand appearing cheap, we're starting to see some newer startups also adopting this similar playbook. While the DTC space has attracted significant investment, the report notes that venture-style returns are not always guaranteed with mergers and acquisitions or M&A, and initial public offerings or IPOs emerging as potential exit strategies for investors. The future of consumer brands in India likely belongs to those that can effectively own and manage their supply chains and distribution networks and think ambitiously in terms of achieving billion-dollar revenue scales, potentially even reimagining basic consumer goods for the unique Indian market. It sounds like a focus on fundamental value. And operational efficiency might be more sustainable than purely online hype in the long run.
Zudio's remarkable success underscores the enduring importance of providing tangible value for money to the Indian consumer. Brands that can maintain tight control over their supply chains, consistently offer quality products at competitive prices without resorting to heavy discounting, and build a strong sense of customer satisfaction, seem to have the most robust foundation for long-term growth and profitability in this market.
Let's delve into the section on making real things in India. This part of the report traces the country's industrial evolution over a long period, starting from its pre-colonial strengths in sectors like textiles and spices, moving through the rise of public sector, heavy industries after independence, the period of economic liberalization, and the current landscape dominated by the private sector, and the ongoing digital transformation. It's a narrative that spans significant historical and economic shifts.
Understanding this broad historical trajectory is absolutely crucial for anyone trying to grasp the current state of manufacturing in India and the various factors, both historical and policy-related, that have significantly shaped its development.
The report highlights the geographical concentration of specific industries within certain Indian states, often heavily influenced by the industrial policies implemented by those state governments. It also touches upon the ongoing and often complex interplay between socialist and capitalist ideologies in shaping the overall manufacturing landscape and policy direction. It seems like governmental policies at both the national and state levels play a very significant role in determining where and how industries develop.
Indeed. State-level industrial policies offering various incentives and infrastructure support, alongside the broader national-level ideological debates between different economic models, have had a profound and lasting impact on the geographical distribution and the very nature of industrial development across India.
While India has achieved notable success in exporting refined products, in sectors like pharmaceuticals and certain defense-related goods, the report points out that the country still maintains a significant economic reliance on imports, particularly from China, in crucial sectors such as electronics and heavy machinery. The report suggests that while India has performed relatively well in capital-intensive industries, it has unfortunately lagged behind in developing robust labor-intensive manufacturing, thus potentially missing out on the much-discussed China Plus One opportunity. This continued dependence on imports in key manufacturing areas remains a significant economic challenge.
The successes India has seen in certain high-value refined export sectors stand in stark contrast to its persistent reliance on imports, especially from China. The report's observation regarding the missed opportunity in labor-intensive manufacturing is a particularly important point to consider when analyzing India's overall industrial strategy and its global competitiveness.
Government-led initiatives have certainly spurred significant growth in sectors like finance and telecommunications. However, the report suggests that what it terms Manufacturing 2.0, characterized by advanced technologies and innovation, is still relatively small in scale within India. The lack of large private sector giants in heavy industries is attributed to several factors, including a historical focus on achieving efficiency through disinvestment of public sector units rather than investing heavily in research and development. Additionally, the absence of true market pricing mechanisms. When public sector undertakings, or PSUs, are the primary customers of other PSUs, may have also stifled innovation and efficiency. It appears that the dominant public sector-led model in heavy industries has faced certain inherent limitations in fostering dynamism and growth.
The report effectively highlights some of the potential shortcomings of a historically public sector-dominated model in fostering the kind of innovation, efficiency and scale needed to create global giants in heavy industries, the focus on disinvestment for efficiency, and the intricacies of inter-PSU transactions may have inadvertently hindered more market-driven growth and technological advancement.
The report raises a fundamental question about whether India as a nation tends to prioritize brand value or underlying product quality. It notes the distinct preference among the top 10% of Indian consumers for well-established global brands, often irrespective of price. Furthermore, it highlights a critical issue, the perceived death of risk capital for manufacturing startups, which is attributed to a banking oligopoly that often favors collateral-based lending. Over a thorough understanding and assessment of underlying business risk, access to adequate and appropriate funding appears to be a major obstacle for many aspiring manufacturing entrepreneurs in India.
The observed preference for global brands among the more affluent segments of the Indian population raises important questions about the perceived quality and brand equity of domestically manufactured goods. The challenge is faced by manufacturing startups in accessing crucial risk capital. Due to the banking system's traditional lending preferences present a significant impediment to fostering innovation and growth in the sector.
Despite India's undeniable strength and global recognition. As an information technology or IT powerhouse, the report points out that its role in electronics manufacturing has largely been limited to supplying relatively inexpensive labor for assembly operations. This contrasts sharply with the leadership of countries like Taiwan, which has successfully established themselves in higher value-added activities within the electronic manufacturing ecosystem. The various government-led manufacturing initiatives have had some positive impact on employment generation, but perhaps less so on fostering the deep technological capabilities and innovation needed to truly compete globally in high-value manufacturing. It seems like India needs to strategically move up the value chain in key sectors like electronics.
India's remarkable success in the IT services sector hasn't fully translated into a similar level of prowess in high-value electronics manufacturing, highlighting a potential gap in the development of core technological capabilities and a need for a more strategic approach to attract and nurture advanced manufacturing processes.
While government regulations have provided some level of support and impetus for certain industries, the report emphasizes the critical need for consistent and long-term policy frameworks to truly foster sustainable growth in manufacturing. Societal prestige in India still often tends to equate manufacturing jobs primarily with manual labor, which may inadvertently hinder the necessary shift away from an overwhelmingly agrarian-based economy. Additionally, the report suggests that universities and educational institutions may not be adequately preparing graduates with the specific skills and knowledge required for modern manufacturing roles. It seems like there are significant cultural and educational barriers that need to be addressed to support the growth of the manufacturing sector.
The report rightly underscores the importance of a stable and predictable long-term policy environment to build confidence and attract investment in manufacturing, addressing societal perceptions around manufacturing careers, and ensuring that university curricula are closely aligned with the evolving needs of the industry are also crucial steps for the sector's future development.
The report highlights a somewhat paradoxical situation. India has demonstrated the advanced technological capability to design and manufacture rockets, but still relies heavily on imports for very basic everyday items like clothes hangers and coffee mugs. This suggests a potential need for more granular and targeted government support, perhaps focusing on areas like subsidizing the costs of molds and dyes and actively promoting technologies like 3D printing. However, the report does offer some optimistic notes, pointing to promising developments and advancements in sectors like drones, defense manufacturing, electronics, and electric vehicles. With several Indian companies beginning to make notable strides in these areas, it feels like a more targeted and sector-specific approach to government support might be more effective in boosting domestic manufacturing across a wider range of products.
The juxtaposition of India's high-tech achievements, with its continued reliance on imports for fundamental goods, underscores the need for more specific and nuanced interventions. Supporting the development of foundational manufacturing capabilities, such as tooling and embracing emerging technologies like 3D printing, while also nurturing the promising growth in advanced sectors like drones and EVs, could be a more effective strategy for strengthening India's overall manufacturing ecosystem.
Let's move to the final section of the report, which focuses on kids in India. This section reveals that India has an enormous population of children, roughly equivalent to the entire population of the United States. However, the report also notes that birth rates are declining, and the age range for women having children is becoming narrower. This clearly signals a significant demographic shift underway in the country.
The sheer magnitude of India's child population, when viewed alongside the trends of declining birth rates and a compressing maternal age range, points to substantial future demographic changes that will likely have wide-ranging impacts across various social and economic sectors.
The very definition of what it means to be a kid in India is undergoing a transformation. Children are increasingly being viewed not primarily as future economic investments for the family, but rather as a project, often a highly indulged one, particularly in the context of smaller family sizes. This shift has also fundamentally altered the definition of being a parent, with more involved, often dual income, and parents having children later in life tending to spend more on their children, potentially driven by factors like limited time and perhaps a sense of guilt about that limited time. It sounds like parenting in India is becoming more intensive, more consumer-driven, perhaps more emotionally complex.
The evolution from viewing children primarily as an economic investment to considering them a project reflects broader shifts in socioeconomic conditions and family structure. This often leads to more focused